Hi everyone! Hope you're having a wonderful Tuesday. So today we're doing a history final review. Our Edpuzzle topics are how to answer the multiple choice questions, reviewing the rise of Islam, as well as the caliphates in the Middle East. So the first thing I would love for you to do is go ahead and check your email to see your caliphates quiz score. I returned them last night, so you should have them at this point. And remember that as you check your score, if you got less than an 80% or never took this quiz, you can do the quiz in quiz corrections in office hours to raise your grade. I have office hours today, Tuesday at 2:15, and then tomorrow at 2:15. So I'm just going to go over the hardest questions on the Caliphates quiz. Please note, though, the numbers are based on version A. So if you have version C, the numbers are going to be off, although the questions are the same. So number 7, under the blank caliphate, Islam reached the height of its golden age. Only 73% passed that one. Number 1, the author of this article would most likely agree with which of the following statements. And then 6, all of the following contributed to the rapid spread of Islamic sect. So those were the top 3 hardest, and I'll go over those. Please realize that even if you got 100% on this quiz, watch the rest of this video because you may have forgotten facts about Islam. So number 7, under the blank caliphate, Islam reached the height of its golden age. In its capital of Baghdad, scholars from around the world translated ancient texts, made advancements in science and the humanities at the House of Wisdom. So my first step to answering this question will be, can I identify the key terms in the question that will help me identify the correct empire? Let's say I don't even remember all of these different empires or caliphates. Okay, so I'm going to reread the question. So what I know what to look for is I'm going to look for the caliphate that led to Islam's golden age. It had its capital in Baghdad, and that scholars made advancements in the House of Wisdom. So those are my 3 key terms. So my second step is to look back in my notes because you'll be allowed to use your study guide for the final exam during multiple choice and during part 2. So now I want you to practice this. I took these 2 descriptions from the study guide from this original quiz. So out of these 2 caliphates, the Umayyad or the Abbasid, which one is the one that mentions Golden Age, capital of Baghdad, or House of Wisdom? So read them and then answer whether it was Umayyad or Abbasid. All right, hopefully you guessed the Abbasid Caliphate because if you were to read this little excerpt, it mentions Golden Age, capital of Baghdad, and the House of Wisdom. Okay, out of all the caliphates we studied, the only one you need to remember is the Abbasid, since it was the one which brought the Middle East into a golden age. So in this area, we can remember that during the Abbasid Golden Age, Islamic scholars were studying super hard and making advancements, particularly in the capital of Baghdad. So what was the name of the caliphate that you need to remember most for the final? Don't forget, go ahead and click it. Yes, it's the Abbasid, don't forget. So here are some big ideas as a reminder, why does the Abbasid matter? Under the Abbasid caliphs, the Muslim empire reached the height of its power. Muslim rulers united diverse cultures like Arab, Persian, Egyptian, African, and European, often absorbing and blending them. It also led to the translation movement, where Muslim scholars translated and preserved works of ancient Indian and Greek thinkers and added to this knowledge before passing it to the Europeans in later centuries. Through contacts in Muslim Spain, Christian European scholars began to study Muslim philosophy, art, and science. This renewed interest in knowledge paved the way for the European Renaissance in the 14th to 17th centuries. So what we're learning here is, as a reminder, the Abbasid Caliphate was very diverse. There were so many different races, ethnicities, religions, and they welcomed them all. And like one of the big things they did during the Abbasid was the translation movement. And you can see these Muslim scholars are here crowded together in this library or area and preparing the texts. And so the big thing that Muslims did was they valued education. And so they translated all of these different texts from different cultures. And what happens is, because the Muslims preserved these books, they were able to pass these books and knowledge on to Christian Europeans, which will pave the way for the European Renaissance. And in case you forgot, please remember that while the Middle East, Africa, and Asia were going through a golden age, the post classical time period was overall a very dark period for Europe. From 476 to about 1000 CE, remember that the Roman Empire had just fallen in 476 CE, and so there were waves of invaders coming in. So it was a dark age. There was a low population, there were lots of wars and death. There was no emperor to stop invasions. Economically, they had low trade. Culturally, they had low education, technology, and art. And then there were some natural disasters and pollution. So as a reminder as well, during this time in Western Europe, most people couldn't read. So without Muslim scholars preserving European knowledge, would the Renaissance even have happened? This is a very classic, when people think European Renaissance, they think of this painting. And as you can see, there's a lot of particularly men walking around discussing probably philosophy and art. And would that have even happened if Muslims didn't re-spark European interests in their own culture? I don't know. Maybe not. So now we're going to transition to how to answer text-based multiple choice questions. Step 1 is to always read the source information first, right? Before you even read the source. Step 2, read the source carefully to find the author's main message. Step 3, read the question carefully. Use POE, which is process of elimination, to narrow down your answer. This is key. Using prior knowledge and study guide notes will help during step 3. And then step 4, consult the question one more time to verify your answer, possibly skim the text again if you're not sure. So, as a reminder, let's do number 1 together. The author of this article would most likely agree with which of the following statements? So before we even read the text, let's read the source information first, which is located at the top. So what I'm learning here is the source was called Baghdad, metropolis of the Abbasid Caliphate, chapter 5, the golden age of Arab and Islamic culture. So from the title, it tells me the topic of this text is the golden age of Arab and Islamic culture, specifically how Baghdad was the center of the Abbasid Caliphate. So now my next step is to read the source to find the author's main message. So let's do that. After the appearance of paper from China, a number of manuscripts multiplied from one end of the Muslim empire to the other. This prosperous period for the publishing and selling of books was essential for the cultural development. Paper was, therefore, of prime importance in the 9th century. Well-stocked bookshops were often set up around the main mosques. Scholars and writers met in them, and copyists were hired there. In addition to the public libraries open to everyone, Jean Savdier, quoting an Arab source, spoke of reading rooms where anyone, after paying a fee, could consult the work of his choice. All right, so now I've got to think of the main message, and I typed it up here. So basically what I'm getting from this, after paper came from China, book selling flourished in Baghdad, with bookshops opening and libraries for everyone. So what I'm noticing here is what's standing out to me is reading, education, books, like bookshops. So that's the topic. So now I should be able to use the process of elimination to narrow down my answer. The author of this article would most likely agree with which of the following statements? Well, I'm going to cross out A. European civilizations were responsible for most advancements in this period, because I just reminded you that during this time period, Europe was in a dark age. So that one doesn't make any sense. B. Islam rejected science and scholarly advances in favor of religious law. That could be right, because I did remember the passage talking about scholarly advancements with books and stuff, so I'll leave that one there just in case. C, religion and science almost never can coexist in a civilization. I didn't hear anything about science being mentioned, and it didn't talk about the relationship between religion and science in the text, so I'm going to mark that down as not true. And then D, Baghdad was an intellectual capital in the time period of 600 CE to 1000 CE. Okay, yeah, I actually think that one's probably correct because it mentions Baghdad specifically. But let's just go ahead and check B and D to see if that one is correct. So now that I think about it, it doesn't really make sense, B, for Islam to reject science and scholarly advances, because we know that Islam really embraced education and science, right? They encouraged people to come to the House of Wisdom to study. So that one's not right. And so I believe the answer is D. So let me go ahead and check if the step 4 is to consult the question one more time to verify your answer and possibly skim the text again if you're not sure. So the author of this article would most likely agree with which of the following statements? Yeah, D, Baghdad was the intellectual capital. And what really hits it home for me is because even though the actual passage didn't mention the word Baghdad, the source title did say Baghdad specifically. So I know that all of these advancements happening in books was happening in Baghdad. Okay, so we're just going to give you some reflection time. Out of these 4 steps, which one do you need to try to start doing the most and why? For me, I think the step that students often miss is either step 1, they often don't read the source information at all, so they don't consider who the author is, and that's always important, and the title can give you evidence and help you understand the document. Another thing students forget to do is process of elimination. So please do those 2 things and do it well. Okay. So next question is number 6. All of the following contributed to the rapid spread of Islam except I want you to choose the lie, right? So whenever you see an accept question, and those are hard. So whenever you see a accept question, you want to use process of elimination. You're going to cross out the ones you know are true and then select the lie. So all of the following contributed to the rapid spread of Islam except A, military conquest. That one could be true, so I'm going to leave that because, Muslims did conquer a lot of areas. So I'm going to put that a question mark. B, policies that promoted trade. Actually, I know that one's true because Islam really did promote trade. It was in the middle of the trade route, so that one's definitely not a lie. C, benefits attached to the Muslim identity, such as a shared language and religious customs. That could be believable. Or D, forced conversion of conquered peoples such as Christians and Jews. Oh, okay. I know that D is a lie because the teacher, Miss Yokoyama, keeps talking about how the Catholic Church kept lying that they were forcing Christians to convert to Islam when we know that Muslims did not do that. They had a policy against forced conversions. So even if I wasn't sure about the other ones, if I know that D is a clear lie, then I'm going to circle that one and select that one. And now as I think about it, C, benefits, there were benefits attached to the Muslim identity. A lot of people converted to Islam by choice because they had a shared language of Arabic, and they had the 5 pillars of Islam, which brought the community together. So the last thing I want to remind you is to consider the point of view and purpose of your teacher, me. Remember that the whole purpose of Unit 4, Middle East and Africa, our goal was to fight back against Eurocentrism. Eurocentrism is the tendency of American culture to romanticize, idealize European culture and only see the positives of European culture. So we want to stop that. So a hint is any answer choice that suggests that Europeans were making more technological, academic, or economic advancements during this time period is probably wrong. Okay. So here is your practice question. So based on the passage on the slide, the author would most strongly agree with which of the following statements? A, Europeans will always be intellectually superior over Arabs. B, Arabs and Franks must continue to work together to avoid another crusade. C, that the European revival wouldn't have been possible without Arabs preserving Greek heritage in their books. Or D, that Arabs have and will continue to be the best academics in the world. So here is the passage. Go ahead and read it on your own, and then choose from letters A, B, C, or D, and then I'll let you know if you're correct. Okay, so The correct answer, let's go through the process of elimination. So, A, Europeans will always be intellectually superior over Arabs. No, that one's not true because the author mentions in the beginning how it was the Arabs that were educating the Europeans. What about B? Franks and Arabs must continue to work together to avoid another crusade. That one could be true, right? Maybe he wants them to work together. C, that the European revival wouldn't have been possible without Arabs preserving Greek heritage in their books. Yeah, that one sounds right. Let's try D, that the Arabs have and will continue to be the best academics in the world. Well, no, I don't think that one's correct because it talks about how the Arabs, the Europeans, right, in the text it says the Europeans will surpass, the French will imitate and then surpass the Arabs eventually. So I know that the correct answer is C. The European revival wouldn't have been possible without Arabs preserving Greek heritage in their books. So, thank you for reviewing with me. Please don't forget to attend our last class on Wednesday, Thursday, and I will continue reviewing part 2 and getting you ready for the reading comprehension questions. Friday asynchronous, we'll be reviewing Africa and doing more multiple choice practice. I will see you soon. Bye.